again. Our guest today is at his very best when he's at his very worst. One of the most evil of screen villains. He has mobs after him. Please join us in welcoming actor Richard Lynch. And now, here's your man of the half hour, Skip D. Lowe.
Richard Lynch, chameleon actor.
Mm-hmm.
England's greatest actor, who is that? One of the greatest English actors, Laurence Olivier. You have something very much in common with him as an American actor.
I'm flattered by that. I've had an extremely eclectic kind of career.
Right.
I've been very fortunate that way, by the way, because first of all, my theater roots. I mean, I'm coming out of the Manhattan theater community for a lot of years, and I never, you know, I really wasn't aspiring to be a film actor.
Really?
Actually, well, it wasn't in the cards at that time, you know.
What were you doing then at that time?
A theater actor.
But you never wanted to be a film actor.
Well, I don't think that was really like I was desiring. You know, there are certain actors who, by the way, never wanted to have anything to do with theater. Mm-hmm. They don't. Fundamentally, they're film actors. Mm-hmm.
There is a difference, isn't there, Richard?
Oh yeah, sure. There's a great difference.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, sure. I think that. Well, it's not so unusual. I mean, if the film medium is a director's medium, you know, and film has been very kind to me. By the way, I've had a real good career. Next year, I think, next year I'll be going on my 30th year professionally as an actor.
Really?
So I put a few days in this, you know. But those early years, those first 10, 15 years, I keep going back and forth to the stage. But the 10 or 15 years that I was active in the New York theater community have given me a lot of different, different parts that I've been able to play, and later on translated into film.
Who did you study with, Richard Lynch? At the beginning of your career? Did you study?
Yes, I did. Of course I did. Yeah. I started off real early on at the Herbert Berghoff studios in New York's Greenwich Village. I'm coming out of Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn.
And I stumbled into it. A lot of people, I was talking to somebody the other night about, they asked me, how did you find your way into a theater career?
Right.
You know, what was that about? And I had to stop and really think about that, because it wasn't something that I had thought about early on in my youth or something. I really, truly found a place for me.
Right.
In fact, what had happened was I had banged around a lot after the armed forces. I'd done my stint was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, you know.
Really? Richard Lynch, a Marine?
Yeah, I plugged that. Once a Marine, always a Marine, I guess. You know? And after I'd gotten out of the service, back then, I had found myself in New York's Greenwich Village, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And it was a very vital time, that time, in the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s, in New York. There was a lot of things happening. It was, artistically, there was a tremendous amount of change was going on politically and artistically at that period of time. And the theater was very vital, if you remember. You know, it was still really...
Because they change, theater changes a lot of things.
Oh, well, everything has changed. Even Hollywood has changed.
Yeah.
You know, even the whole face of our industry has changed. Anyway, and I had found myself through someone's suggestion of actually going to this little acting studio down on Bank Street, the Herbert Berghoff Bank Street studio, and I really felt comfortable there. And I explained to I've been teaching now lately, but I'll get into that later. And I say to some of the students that I had found a forum in which I could really express myself. I really found I had the artistic license to allow. I had a lot of stuff going on inside of me, and I couldn't get it out. You know, and all of a sudden I found a forum in which I could really let out a lot of my emotional life that was going on. And I've often said to a lot of people that I found when I had walked on stage, I found it more real for me there than literally in reality.
Really?
I found reality falser than the truth I found on stage.
So Richard Lynch is very happy when he's performing.
Always. I must perform.
You must.
Oh, I must. I'm a workaholic. I definitely must perform.
So that's what makes a good actor, because it shows on stage if you're happy with your craft.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because what has happened, and it seems to me like almost to an epidemic of proportion today, there are a lot of aspiring young actors and actresses that come to our town. They get terribly disappointed. I run into them. It's very sad. They have an idea that they want to be an actor, they want to be an actress.
They want to be stars, though,
They want to
Richard.
be stars.
That's it. Not actors, stars.
Yeah. We're talking about a lifestyle. We're
Right.
talking about we're talking about a life in art, for real now, not being pretentious. A real lifestyle that is an adventure. I've been very, very fortunate, because later on, after I moved out of the Bank Street studios, I ended up with the late Paula Strasberg. I don't know if you remember
Of course.
Paula was,
Marilyn Monroe's.
Right. Paula was Marilyn Monroe's coach, and she was very, very good to me. I got to know Paula later on as I moved
Right.
uptown, more or less, and then spent a lot of time with Lee Strasberg, for quite a while, and then later on with Frank Casaro, who is now the
Right.
who went into the New York Opera for many
Right.
years and is well known as an opera director, and presently is the artistic director of the Actors Studio, and eventually. Through a series of different events, I gained entry into the Actors Studio. So I am a member of the Actors Studio. And,
So you're really a method actor, or do you?
I'm very.
I watch you. Sometimes I don't think you are when I see you.
Well, you know, that's touchy. You know, there's. You know, when they talk about this method business, all right?
Yeah.
I'm real strong about younger people when I talk to them about getting really good training in some of the techniques that Lee shared with us, some of the techniques and the understandings and that we know at the Actors Studio.
Right.
Because what happens later on in our professional careers, you don't have time to do this. Yes. You walk on a set. I mean, there's another whole world out there in the professional life. You know that.
Of course.
I mean, you're going to go down there. You know, the curtain is going up. You have a whole audience out there. You don't have time to do all this behavior. The method has got a real bad rap, by the way.
Yes.
Bad. People do not understand it. Even back then, Lee used to even tell people that they didn't even understand his work.
Is it because you think there was a communism type of thing? They thought it was communism?
No.
Really?
No.
Because most of those... Go ahead.
No, not at all. No, not at all. I think that that certain actors had taken it and became so indulgent in it, that became so self-indulgent to a point that they were offensive and difficult to work with and slow down things. And what happens through that process is that it becomes organic. You know, the late great John Coltrane, you know, in music, because acting has a lot of music in it, used to say, scales, 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 and more scales, and then forget them. You forget your scales.
Yes.
You know, it's in any basic foundation craft. You've got to train. A good actor, a good actress will train, get a good foundation inside of them. And then when they walk into the professional world, it's organic, it's there. It's not something that they have to, it just somehow it's tapped, it's there. You know, I've used it many times in many roles.
I see, I'm looking at you right now, Richard,
Yeah.
the way you're expressing yourself.
Yeah.
Richard Lynch, theater, you love it. You started
I love my theater,
First theater, first show on the stage. What was the very, very first for Richard Lynch? Can you
I'll
go
tell
back?
you, want to have I'll tell you, it's very funny. The very first show that I ever did, ever in my life, was that I did a showcase of Medea in a hangar at the old Idlewild Airport, which later on, of course, became Kennedy.
Right.
Before it was the J.F. Kennedy International Airport in New York, it was Idlewild, the Idlewild Airport. And that was the first time I ever performed in this empty hangar to about maybe 15 people, a little show. Now, if you're talking about professionally, my first professional engagement in New York was I made my off-Broadway debut in John Arden's Live Like Pigs with David Wheeler in the Boston Theater Company in Boston. I had taken over for Joe Mahar, who had gone on the road with Cambridge Circus. And actually, I was vying back and forth. John Voight was across the street doing View from the Bridge with God, taking a blank.
That's okay.
Anyway, he was doing View from the Bridge and the part of Rudolfo.
Right.
And I wanted to get in. I needed my shot. And I ended up doing relieving Joe in John Arden's Live Like Pigs off-Broadway. And actually, simultaneously, because I was coming in at the end of the show, I had just got cast by Michael Kakoyanis opposite Jason Robards and Anne Bancroft in The Devils.
Oops.
So I had gone, all of a sudden, I busted into the New York Theater Committee
Off-Broadway
with an off-Broadway and an on-Broadway contract 2 weeks between.
How did you handle that, Richard? What, I mean, from off-Broadway to Broadway, Annie Bancroft, great show,
yeah, it was
The
really
Devil.
exciting
I remember
for me.
that show.
You know, I was kind of, you know, I mean, I was new, and I had all the awe.
Right.
There was that wonderful, frightening feeling of performing, you know, professionally.
But that makes you perform better.
Yeah, I think so, sure.
It does.
Yeah.
I always feel it's,
yeah.
when I'm frightened, I perform better.
Sure.
I just do.
Yeah.
Richard Lynch, first film, very first film.
My very first film.
When did you come to Hollywood? Yeah.
Well, let me speak. My first film is I made my film debut opposite Al Pacino and Gene Hackman in Scarecrow.
Ooh, was that your first?
That was my first movie. Actually, there was a little thing before it with John. I did a little thing called The Stoolie with who directed Rocky?
Oh, I can't think. I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
Yeah. It'll come to mind.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of days on that, but that was just like an extra in the background.
Pacino.
But my first film was I was off on the road with the basic training of Pablo Hummel. We had a wonderful company of actors, an exciting show, at a really a sensitive time, you know, as far as the anti-war movement was going on in Vietnam. And Al had just been discovered.
Al Pacino was just...
he finally got a big bump upstairs in a little picture by Mario Puzo called Godfather.
Right.
You know, everybody thought it'd be a wonderful little gun-and-run gangster movie.
Right.
They never anticipated the numbers.
They never did they?
No. And that went right through the comet, right through the top of the ceiling to the 200
They thought it was going to be a small movie?
They thought it would be a good film. They did not anticipate a $200 million return on that film.
Really?
And of course he was, as Michael Corleone, you know, he was the new romantic.
What kind of guy is Al Pacino?
I think Al is a very serious artist. I think he's...
another theater actor.
Yeah, great theater actor, by the way.
Good theater actor.
Yeah, very, very good theater actor. You know, Al is, you know, has his own peculiar eccentricities. You know, Al is a committed,
Richard Lynch does
actor.
too. Richard is not just an ordinary actor. Richard Lynch is a very private, and like I used the word chameleon. You have done so many roles, like Sir Lawrence Olivier.
Olivier, yeah.
You and him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done so many roles. People think they are leading actors. They are really not. He is really a chameleon actor like you.
Well, I think what is exciting for me is that you see, that's interesting that you bring that up.
I've always thought that.
Yeah, no.
Always.
No, because I've had the opportunity and I've wanted to play a variety of roles, and
Right.
I've been lucky to do that. I have a rather large range. I've been able to do that.
That's right.
I've been able to go from playing from 20 to 70.
Right.
You know, when I played, which I feel good about my work with George Scott in The Formula.
The Formula.
Marlon Brando.
Yes.
And I fought for that role, by the way.
Did you really?
Yeah, John Avildsen. Pardon me, John.
Yeah, okay.
John Avildsen.
The director,
yeah,
right, I'm
wonderful
sorry.
director.
Yeah,
you know,
right,
an
right.
Academy Award.
I knew you were going to get it, yeah.
Yeah. John Avildsen cast me in the Formula.
In the Formula.
Which was a really wonderful film.
Oh, yes.
When you look back now and look at it,
Yeah.
you know, it had great cast. It had John Gielgud. It had Martha Keller, Marlon Brando, George Scott, Beatrice Straight, who was just coming out of a fabulous performance in Network. And I had an opportunity to play, and in fluent German, by the way,
Right.
to play from the early part of the film, go all the way through to 70 years later that I come off
older.
You know. So yes, I've had an opportunity to play many variety of.
How many
parts.
accents do you do? You do a lot. Don't you?
Yeah, I've got 5 or 6 in my back pocket.
Your voice is wonderful.
Yeah, I've got a whole load of accents. I study. I do my thing. I can speak a degree of. I speak the Eastern tongues fairly decently. I can get by with them. Czech, a little Hungarian. I can speak some Russian, German.
What was your satisfying role that you have done? Is there something that in your mind right now, looking back?
If I tell you, it's almost flip.
Something
okay?
satisfying that you
Because
liked.
I've been a crossover actor. I've been able to be what is known, typically in this town, without being hurt by it. I've been able to be a crossover actor, meaning that I go back, I do my stage work. By the way, this is commonly accepted among the British community.
It is.
But out here, it's a little bit frowned upon, or maybe some actors can't do it. Incidentally,
Can't.
They can't. They
That's
just
the word.
don't have the
Let's use it.
facility.
Let's be upfront.
Well, it's a peculiar thing. A crossover actor is somebody who is able to adjust to the 3 different forms of acting.
Acting, yes.
Legitimate stage, big camera, 35 millimeter film, and television.
Yes.
So I've been able to cross over in these mediums.
Yes.
All right? Now, and by running the risk of being pretentious, and I truly don't mean this, whether I'm doing a $30 million film for MGM, or if I'm doing a week episodic show for Aaron Spelling,
right.
I approach it with the same degree of commitment,
right.
and I try. So now when you ask me, what is the most satisfying role I ever had, or I think that I've aspired in, is that, strangely enough, is that Aaron Spelling cast me in Starsky and Hutch some years back, whereby it was a character that I had to play 4 different characters, about an actor of a very famed theatrical family, a little bit like the Barrymores, who, by the way, I know several of the Barrymores. And I had to go through different changes. I played almost like King Lear. I played a woman, by the way, dressed up.
I love it.
I played a fop, and then I played, and what it was a very simple, really, Rick Edelstein, but he directed it. You know, we had a wonderful time, and it was a simple, very thin story about an actor who was maimed, and his career, to some degree, was destroyed by that. And somehow, that material appealed to me. And I still have that footage. Some people in the community have
Matter of fact, you brought me a footage today. And I loved them to see this footage that you brought. It is great. To show my audience, some of the people, to look back and see this, what I'm talking about, this King Lear and all this wonderful Cromwell. It's absolutely wonderful.
Well, I've had a lot of I had a lot of success with the Sword and the Sorcerer.
It
was a bit of a coup, the Sword and the Sorcerer. Before you run the tape, I'll tell you something about it. Is that when the Sword and the Sorcerer was released, you know, it was designed to be an action adventure fantasy movie. Okay. But it became the #1 top-grossing independent film worldwide, which is to say something. Now the majors, you know, they do their fine business, and the independents have to find their little way in among that to see. But it was a very successful film for me internationally and worldwide, and also I did another film later on for Canon. Called The Barbarian, of which you've got some film clips from it. And the reason I brought this over for you to see this is because I've been cast a lot in rather bigger-than-life parts. Bigger-than-life parts.
I understand.
And I come from simple beginnings, incidentally. But it seems that my persona lends itself to more theatrical, bigger-than-life parts. Even though I've got a lot of work behind me where that's not so, but they tend to cast me this way. So I thought, well,
I'd like to see this film and let my audience see it.
A little bit of it.
Let's show this little clip of.
Know you now of days long past, the time when the world was young, when sorcery thrived and wild adventure was forever in the offing.
It isn't wise, my lord, to allow these scorpions to live.
I made a pledge, sorceress. They're not to die by my hand, or that of my subjects. Tonight you will be my queen, and soon the queen of the entire world. And I will make love to you like no other can. Few women in the world have worn jewels such as these. I myself raised Zusha from the dead. Little did I know what I let loose upon the world.
Wild tale.
It's no tale. I've stalked Zusha for 10 years, watching for signs of his devilish work. He's using you as a pawn to gain control of my kingdom.
Your kingdom? Nothing you call yours is truly yours, Cromwell.
My God, man, there is a demon in our midst. And he is the leader of your cause. You tell us where he is and save us all.
Do you, Titus Cromwell, take this woman to be your bride, your queen, the mother of your children?
I do. Soon the power of the ruby will be mine. It looked to me as if you had fled, as if you were free.
My magic made you think so. Now, I am free.
Richard, the cab, that was so great. God, that's exciting.
Yeah. Right.
Playing Cromwell, how was it? Working, that's such a great role. Ooh, strong,
Yeah.
powerful.
I'll tell you the interesting thing about this movie is that it was all made in Los Angeles.
It was?
Right. And we got to give a lot of credit to Albert Pune, the director who wrote most of the movie.
Right.
But he was very creative in bringing the film off. And it was a tough movie to do because at that time there was a heat wave. And we were shooting some of that down in Riverside.
Oh, Riverside.
And you saw some of those costumes, man, in about 120-degree heat, carrying on with that stuff. Right. You know, it was really heavy. You know.
The Science Fiction Award. You got the Best Actor Award for Science Fiction Horror. Tell me about that. How, you Best Actor of the Year?
Well, I was flattered by that. You know, from the Academy of Science Fiction. It's a reputable academy. I would like, obviously, someday to get the other award.
Richard,
you know, but
I'm
that's
looking
all right.
right now. You will, because I'll tell you, you have I hate to use that word, pay your dues, because that's not really a good word. I don't like to say that word, pay your dues. You've been in the business.
I'm a veteran actor.
You're a veteran actor. You've started in the theater, where really the roots are there.
Right.
You know, actors want to be stars all of them. You didn't want to be a star. You wanted to be an actor. That's what every actor should learn to be.
I found the enthusiasm, the joy of the craft of acting. I love the acting. It became a challenge for me. What happened to me early on, and it still is, by the way, part of it's organic in me, is that I started to I started to compete with my own ability. How far could I go? How much more could I do? How much more could I explore? To me, I found a great excitement about it. So I think everybody, to some degree, sure, I've enjoyed a certain amount of exposure. You know, I've got a following internationally. It's pleasing. All that is nice. I mean, you know, but that wasn't the motive. The motive was that I loved the work, and it was a challenge how far I could go with it. And then to explore the craft of drama, and to get deeper into it, and how real could I make it, and then the lifestyle that came with it, and the friends and the colleagues and the beauty of it became something that was much more valuable to me. Sure. That wouldn't be really truthfully representative if I said I didn't want a bigger career. Of course I do. If I didn't want the fruits of filmdom, of course I do. But it's not the primary motive.
I see. Not with Richard Lynch it isn't.
No, it's my life.
Richard Lynch, been married, has child, boy, young man. He's an actor.
Yeah, he's a young, beginning to be, you know, a young fellow who's, I love my son, he's wonderful. He's a good guy. He's 22
You have a new film
old.
coming out, too. I
have a couple of films coming out.
Do?
Well, let's talk about one. I have actually one film right now. The other one, we don't know what's going to happen with it. Yeah, I have a movie called October 32nd.
Right.
Whereby, and it's an action adventure film. But it's very interesting. It's got a lot of effects. It's a children's movie in a way. It appeals. Yeah, it's going to get a good rating. It's going to be a lot of, you know, it has a maybe even get a GP rating. And it's loosely based on the Arthurian legends, and I play Pendragon, and it's kind of in search of the Holy Grail.
We need children's films.
Yeah,
we don't have enough children's films, really.
The film that I'm hoping to develop with some people is that I'm looking, and if I can make it happen, and it looks like it's a possibility, I may be doing a movie about Nikola Tesla.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is exciting for me. And
so, Richard's looking back, having a good time right now, would you say?
Yeah, I'm having a good time.
You've had some difficulty times in your life, Richard. I mean,
what is the great quote? Let me tell you the great quote of John Gielgud when he was asked, and I will steal his quote.
Please,
all right?
Please.
John Gielgud, when he was said to say something or quote something about his career, about the world of an actor, he said, "The shame of it all, and the victory of it all."
That's true.
The shame
and the victory. And
so, sure.
Yes.
It's a life. Yeah, I had some really heavy valleys, but I've had some wonderful heights. I wouldn't trade it for nothing.
Teaching acting now. Where are you teaching? In L.A.?
Yeah, I started. I get a lot of joy out of it. I want to revive the craft. I want to help younger people. I'm down at the second stage on Santa Monica and Wilcox.
Great.
I'm down there, and
I gotta come. Can I come down and sit in?
Absolutely. I'd love to have you come down.
I'd love to see how you.
Love to have you come down
because Shelley's teaching too. Shelley Winters is teaching. Kim Stanley's teaching.